Hi everyone, it's Brown Jack Quarterback. This time I'm back with another video regarding Jorge Masvidal. I want to talk about what made us love Jorge Masvidal and what's recently made us hate Jorge Masvidal. Now I want you to take the term hate with a pinch of salt. I only use that because fans in general tend to either love or hate athletes. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is exactly how I think of him, but this is me just analyzing his behavior from the early days to the present. And I want to talk to you about these questions on the right hand side. Is, did Gamebred keep that same energy? Would we make the same shift he did if we became a star late in our life? What is Jorge's path back to good graces? I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the show. Now, naturally, as humans, we don't actually do what we're told. We tend to do what we see. And the reason I'm taking a deep dive into Masvidal's background is because I want to know what his environment was as a child. And listen to this story about his father's journey to the US.
He came from Cuba at the age of 14. He stole a tire from a tractor, turned it into a raft. Just said, we don't want to be told what our favorite color is going to be or what to watch on TV, so they left Cuba. So my dad was 14 at the time. All he knows is just street life. I think I don't got to go through all that, and you're here to guide me, you know.
When we begin to emotionally invest ourselves in sports athletes, I find that we tend to lean into these kind of stories, the underdog stories. And when people who make it to the mountaintop say, I'm not supposed to be here, I shouldn't be here, it's because of stories like this, because they really should not be at this point. And I find that us as fans tend to lean into those stories because it's such a great triumph when they make it all the way from such humble beginnings. He goes on further to detail his father's life once he got to the US. He talks about how his father spent a lot of time in jail, around 18 years, but he says that his father is his best friend, you know, someone he looks up to, his hero. And when he would mess up and he would visit his father in jail in his teen years, his dad would just have to shake his head for Jorge to feel so disappointed in himself, because his dad finding out that his son's a troublemaker or causing some issues would kill Jorge to the heart. And the reason I believe that is because he respects his dad's journey and his dad's history so much. He knows his dad has seen so much hardship. He can appreciate the hard work his dad's been through in order to get him here, and letting him down must just absolutely crush him. He's a guy who really respects his father and even respects his mother. Listen to this clip about her.
She had a full-time job at this dollar rental-car place. She had a part-time job. Then at night, I remember she used to pack up like necklaces.
Okay.
Like she'd make necklaces all night long. And I would wake up like at 2 in the morning as a kid and see her work. And those type of visuals install the work ethic that...
I understand my comments on this clip are veering slightly from the topic of the video itself. However, I just want to say that stories like this actually almost bring me to tears, and I'm so glad I know the ending to this story, the fact that Jorge has made plenty of money at this point and his mum would never ever have to do anything close to that again. It's great to know that. Now, Jorge Masvidal is a guy who loves to fight. He's someone who frames it in a way of, whatever you like to do, if you like to play basketball, if you like to play football, this is what I like to do. I like to get in a fight. I like to take hits and I like to give hits.
In the day?
No, I got in the fighting because I loved it. It was like the only thing that tickled my pickle, you know, that I wanted to do. Like, I want to fight, you know. And it was like people play basketball, people break dance. I'd put on the gloves and like box in the front yard.
A lot of the time, we find that fighters have chosen this path maybe because they have nothing else in their life, no other prospects. It may also just be because they are good at fighting. It might not necessarily mean that they enjoy it. We think about George St. Pierre, who absolutely dreads fight day. But then we look at Jorge Masvidal, who he actually gets a kick out of fighting, which shows you that he's built different. He's someone who finds pleasure in this hell.
That was your big breakout, was you against Ray, right?
Yeah, out of the street fights for sure.
Kimbo's protege?
Yes.
Is that, how old are you in that clip?
I think 18. I just saw like a big dude in front of me. I was like, he looks like a bodybuilder or some shit, you know. I was like, man, F him, you know. Kimbo was training out of the same gym that I was training. I'm in McDonald's drive-thru eating, and I get a phone call. It's like, hey, you want to fight still? I was like, yeah, fuck yeah.
How much you get paid for that?
Nothing. I bet it like on the side with like people.
When you beat him, that was a big deal the first time, Ray, right?
Yeah, it was a big deal. I think it was a big deal because I was so little.
Yeah, Jorge is obviously someone who comes from a very tough neighborhood. He's seen a lot of things. You know, he talks about how you could get shot when these fights are being set up. But he talks about them so casually and so leisurely. He even mentions about how he's gone to McDonald's, and when he was winning those street fights, he would have McDonald's covered for like 3 months. He's so relatable as a person, but the things he loves are so unrelatable. His love for violence is so hard to relate to for domesticated people. I don't know if that's the right word, but It's fascinating to see. He actually transitioned this street fighting background, the love of street fighting. He figured out that he could create an income from this, and then took this into the professional world, where he fought for many different organizations, fought against some of the best competition in the world, and continued to make money doing this, something that he loves, that people are absolutely afraid of. Now, Jorge Masvidal was a guy who absolutely loved fighting. He was a very active fighter when he became a professional. He fought in a lot of different promotions against some of the best people in the world, and he worked his way up in the Strikeforce promotion in the 155-pound division, earning a title shot against then champion, part of the scrap pack, Mr. Gilbert Melendez, who was arguably the best fighter in the world at that weight. We had a lot of controversy because we had Frankie Edgar, which transitioned into Benson Henderson as the champion in the UFC, and a lot of discussion was happening as to whether Gilbert was actually the real best fighter in the world. So Masvidal definitely had his work cut out for him. He unfortunately lost this, but he had such a fan-friendly style. And that was the first fight that me personally, I had ever seen through Jorge Masvidal, and I definitely became a fan because his striking was so crisp. He had such great technique. After Strikeforce was absorbed by Zuffa in a massive deal, Jorge Masvidal's contract was then shifted over to the UFC. Now, he had a few good fights and a few good wins, but he would always lose a crucial win against, for example, Rustam Khabilov, and then he lost a couple of split decision losses, Al Iaquinta, Benson Henderson, and so forth. This was the reason he wasn't able to gain any traction with the fans. Of course, he had some fans and I was watching his fights, but he could never break through to the medium audience, which is what I like to call the people between the hardcores and the casuals.
Sometimes I like to play with my food. I like to beat guys up. I like to torture guys. Sometimes I don't pull the trigger. Sometimes I drop dudes and I smile at them after I drop them. Sometimes in the past, I've been on cruise control, kicking a guy's ass so much that I'm like, I don't need to pull the trigger. I'm just out skilling them everywhere.
What this tells us about Masvidal is that he loves fighting so much, he's completely content to just allow the fight to continue, even if he feels as though he could finish the fight. It's not that he doesn't have a killer instinct, it's that he's choosing to allow the fight to continue because he just loves being in there that much. But it was being detrimental to his career, where he was dropping crucial victories that he required to progress his career further, grab some sponsors, and get the right opportunities at the right time. During his UFC tenure, Masvidal had some very exciting fights, especially his fight with Michael Chiesa. After accumulating a small win streak, he managed to get his first breakout fight, which was against Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Now, this was the company's way of saying to him, you better win this fight if you want to move forward. Now, this fight had sort of a big feel. Everyone who was in the game knew that this fight was the one worth watching. Cowboy's name alone tends to draw in more fans, and because Cowboy was placed in his hometown of Denver, it created a more backyard rivalry that Jorge Masvidal was very accustomed to from his earlier days. He absolutely thrashed Donald Cerrone in this fight.
And I go, what did you say? What'd you say to Cerrone after the fight? He goes, no, man. He goes, leading up to this, he's saying that, like, he doesn't even know who I am. And we work together. We sparred together. And he knows who the fuck I am. So he goes, he was dropping the guard when we spar. He was bringing up the sparring session. He goes, so he knew exactly who I was. So then when that was over, I told him, I go, you know who I am? You know who the fuck I am? That type of thing.
And it felt as though he was finally going to take the next step into the direction he needed to go, until he ran into Damian Maia. Now, Damian Maia, after years of trying to improve on his stand-up, Damian Maia ended up taking a step back and just focusing on using his jiu-jitsu in fights. He used his strongest skill in the best way, instead of trying to become an all-round fighter, and he was very tough to deal with at the 185 division and the 170 division. Masvidal fought very valiantly in this fight, defending Maia's back takes, defending Maia's choke, and he even reversed a few positions at some point. This was such a great fight. So Masvidal didn't lose too much stock in this fight, but it was a high-ranking fight for him. He was then slated to fight against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson at the MSG card under the Bisping versus George St. Pierre main event. This would have been a perfect opportunity to springboard into a huge fight for Masvidal. Now, naturally, these losses have hurt Masvidal in the past emotionally. However, this one seemed to do something a bit different. I think he felt like he was outclassed by Wonderboy, and everyone who was watching could tell that Wonderboy was far superior to Masvidal than in the stand-up. Or it was just a clash of styles, and that Wonderboy's style was superior in this case in terms of scoring points, and it seemed to fluster Masvidal. He then proceeded to take a break, and it wasn't by intention. He actually was looking for a fight after this, he mentions in this interview. However, he does end up taking a reality TV show, a number of weeks, in which he rebuilds his entire mindset, and he credits this as his big change in his return, which was over a year later.
This fight was at MSG.
Yep.
Not even close to the main event.
Not even close.
Lost that fight.
Lost that fight. Gamebred's no longer with us. That guy got buried a long time ago. He's no longer with us, I just had the shut down a lot of negative programming, a lot of things in my life, and just my outlook on certain things, you know, that had to change. And
Now, if you're a guy who follows Jorge Masvidal, you know that doesn't care about any pre-fight hype or trash talk. He doesn't even care to do any social media. The reason is because he's so focused on working on his craft. He's a guy who just focuses on fighting. And this Wonderboy loss allowed him to think, if I'm doing all the work in the gym, I don't spend my time doing anything unnecessary, even for hyping the fight, why am I losing? And he had a mental shift here. He addresses it here saying, I had to kill that guy who was thinking that way in the Wonderboy fight and prior to that.
some time passed in the fight. You know, obviously I'm heartbroken because I lost the fight. I really wanted to win against Wonderboy. I can't get a fight at the time. Also, I got some injuries, so I told my manager, I'm gonna nurse some of my injuries that I got. Just maybe 6 months passed by. I'm ready to compete, let's go. Hey man, I got this reality show for you. I go, awesome. Some time passes, he calls back. He has the same proposition on the table. I go, bro, I want to fight. I don't want to be on the real world or no. Go there for a couple weeks, see what happens. Ends up being that I go for the show 13 weeks and there's no phone, no radio, no TV. I've said it numerous times, but this is kind of how I got to find out exactly what I had to do. It sounds as corny as it may be, but being out from away from everybody just by myself, I got to find me. I got to just listen to my voice, not or anything. I just got to hear my own voice and what I want done in my life before I close the chapter.
The beautiful thing about Jorge Masvidal's rise is that it was not an overnight success. It wasn't even a straightforward success. He had a path with many ups and downs, many left turns and right turns, many distractions as well. A lot of self-doubt, I'm sure, once you lose a lot of fights like he has, but he managed to create his own solution from his own mind. The reality show gave him an opportunity to fix whatever was the problem in his mind. He had a perfect opportunity to reflect on himself and correct his own mental well-being. Now, if you don't know the story about the bamboo tree, it's been watered, nurtured, and had sun on it for 4 years, more than 4 years, and nothing happens. But in the 5th year, it grows 80 feet in 6 weeks. Now, that bamboo tree is not an overnight success, but when you continuously grind and grind and grind, and you keep feeding the tree, it will eventually grow. This story reminds me of Jorge Masvidal's success because he was someone who continued to do this for 15 or 16 years until he finally got his shine, the shine he deserved. Jorge Masvidal was certainly not an overnight success. However, God's plan for Jorge was for him to correct his own issues and create his own success. Nothing was ever given to this man.
So not the reality show, because I could have found this in,
But it helped.
God forbid, in jail. Who am I moment, that constantly being with myself, finding out.
You're more aggressive?
Not just that, but I like reverse engineered my whole career. Just me, God, in the universe. I'd seen every one of my decision losses in my head and went back. How could I have won that decision? Was my first answer. And then I immediately killed that person in thought and said, why the hell would I look for a way to outpoint a guy? I should be ending them. Like, make a math formula so there's no judges involved.
In one of the previous clips where he discussed his coasting and how he tends to just play with his food, outpoint a guy because none of his coaches can tell him what to do. He's gonna do whatever he feels like in that moment. He realized that he was in his own way. It took him the reality show and time alone to get those things. And I think a lot of us as humans are missing that time. We have so many distractions, whether it's our phone, our family, what people think of us, or our reputation, whatever it may be. Maybe we have pressure at work, but we never get time alone, or we don't actively pursue time alone. And when you see stories like this about how his time alone served him so well, made him change his entire life, he became a superstar just because of his mental shift, it's such a beautiful thing to see, and I believe we can all take a massive lesson from this guy.
So basically the fight got me because of Masvidal, no one else.
So why did the call out come then?
Well, I was having trouble getting an opponent. I saw Till was having trouble getting an opponent. It's a no-brainer, you know? Let's fight. Doesn't matter where it's at. If it's in his backyard or in Saturn, I'll go there and scrap.
After the UFC saw how much success they had with fighters like Michael Bisping and Conor McGregor, they groomed Darren Till to become the next breakout star from the UK. They brought the UFC to Liverpool for the first time, and in this instance, Darren Till, after being sort of groomed into a title shot a bit too early in his career, they tried to give him a good bounce-back fight in London, which it was against Masvidal, who was coming off a year layoff. So this was built as a sort of springboard back for Darren Till more than it was for Masvidal's breakout. At this point, Masvidal was quite long in the tooth, so I don't think anyone was expecting what Masvidal did to happen. Masvidal was definitely not a villain in this fight. Even the English fans did have respect for Masvidal. This was his first fight since the reality show. After getting dropped in the first round, Masvidal then proceeds to knock out Till in a very violent fashion in enemy territory. This was a hell of a performance. We always knew Masvidal had this dog in him, but it was showcased using someone with the style of Darren Till. When we talked about styles earlier with Wonderboy, we can now discuss the same thing in the opposite direction with Darren Till. Now, just getting a fantastic knockout doesn't get you superstardom. Something else happened later that night that no one could have predicted.
I got the recipe.
Let's talk about that opening sequence.
Maybe not. If you shot, hey, come over here, say it in my face. Bro.
So Jorge Masvidal had a backstage altercation with Leon Edwards. It wasn't just the altercation that went viral, it was what Masvidal said afterwards that became so catchy, and people really clung on to this. Jorge Masvidal actually has such a natural ability with words, it's just that he chooses not to use them, but in this instance, he had so much attention on him because of his knockout and because of the backstage altercation. He really stepped up to the moment with his words in this one.
After the fight, so I'm doing my interview. July, get your ass kicked to July, you know? So I tell him, just say it to my face, like, man, you're saying it, walking away. That's not, like, we're both men, you know? As I'm walking up to him, I got my hands behind my back to signal, I'm not coming here for problems. But he put his hands up like this, it's on video, and he walks towards me. Well, where I'm from, if you do that, you're gonna punch me in the face, and that's not gonna happen, you know? You're not gonna get a hit off me, you know? So I had to give him the 3-piece with the soda, and then just glide out of there. You know?
I remember in real time when I'd read the article or heard on Twitter or Leon and Masvidal engaged in a scuffle backstage, I thought Masvidal must have assaulted this guy or Masvidal started this beef, because Leon was just very quiet under the radar. But the way Masvidal phrases it here is so hilarious. He's able to phrase such violent things so calmly, and I think we all find it hilarious and we all just love him for that, because he's being 100% genuine when he does it, and fans always love it when the fight is being genuine. Even if they're in the wrong, I'm not saying he is here, I'm just saying the way he's phrased it, it's not something that normally we as fans applaud. We read these kind of stories in the paper and we always abuse them. However, when Masvidal does it, it just has so much swag to it, we love it.
Earn it all over some type of punishment from this, whether it's legal, or the UFC, that this may come back on you at all?
I mean, it's on video, me defending myself. This hooligan threatened my well-being, my life. I was scared, man. Maybe I didn't look it because, you know, pretty damn cold-blooded, but I was scared out of my mind. I said, man, this hooligan here is gonna assault me.
Now, bearing in mind that the altercation has only happened and maybe an hour before this interview, he's still in England at this point and he's just basically bragging about it. It's brilliant. It's just a brilliant move, and this is him naturally as well. He's not forcing this at all. He's playing it off funny. This isn't even close to some of the worst things he's seen in his childhood or during his years growing up or as a street fighter. So because we find it so serious, or as media or as fans, he's just playing it up and having fun with it, and it's just a brilliant move by him. This really did go viral, this interview.
It helped you.
People know who this
People
hooligan
know
is.
Masvidal doesn't take any shit.
People have known that since
They know, but they like to see
before
it.
rainbows had color. They already knew that, man.
This is when Masvidal was respected in more of a street light, to be honest, and the fans started to cater towards him rather than projecting the same things we like about fighters. Oh, they have a great story, or they have a great fighting style. We completely adapted our fandom for Masvidal. We actually catered to his background, how he's a street fighter, he deserves respect, do not F with this guy. He changed our entire perspective as fans, and we started to love him for who he is, you know, even though we'd never seen anything like it before.
Role as though it was his idea to take the fight. It definitely was not. He was trying to do everything he could to avoid it. But that's about it.
Well, I got a question. All these reporters ask me why you're so mad. I'm kind of curious. His muscles aren't very big and his beard's pretty ugly. But besides that, I think it's going to be total domination.
I don't get full on a 3-piece and a soda. He better bring the whole damn family meal.
Ben Askren did an absolutely tremendous job building this fight. Jorge Masvidal was not seen as the favorite in this fight because Ben had an absolutely awful style for Jorge to counteract. In Jorge's career in the past, we've seen him lose to wrestlers who tend to spam him with takedowns, push him against the cage, and just hold on to him. We had seen this before, and even though Ben Askren wasn't proven against elite competition, we did believe that he still had the necessary skill set to do this. He also built the hell out of this fight, which also contributed to the lasting results that ended up in Jorge's career. So to be honest, Jorge Masvidal was the B-side in this fight and against Darren Till, but what an emphatic knockout he did.
Because I got nothing nice to say, so my mother told me if you don't got nothing nice to say, don't say it. So we're going to skip Ben questions.
Why the flying knee?
Because he's a bum.
But let's take a look at it here.
That dude was talking wild, man. You know, I had to show him that there's consequences sometimes. There's some bad motherfuckers out there and you don't want to wake them up.
Can I just say, if you were picking Jorge Masvidal to win this based on styles, fair play to you. I definitely got this one wrong, but Masvidal with a 5-second flying knee KO, I don't think anyone ever could have predicted that. He does a brilliant job in the post-fight interview. He mocks Askren while he's on the ground, and then he also says, there's some bad mother effers out there, don't mess with me. His post-fight press conferences was one of the best of his entire career. It's not just his fight with Darren Till that gets him the rub, it's the Leon Edwards backstage altercation. It's not just that he knocks out Askren, he knocks him out in a record-breaking 5 seconds with a flying knee. Now he has a brilliant post-fight press conference as well. He's doing everything right in such a short period of time, and it's going viral. It's got millions of views on Twitter and Instagram and every social media platform, and this was really where the fire was hot. This was where his stock was at an all-time high.
Took the bait. You know, I put my hands behind my back. He probably thought we were going to fucking patty kick it up or something. I don't know. But he walked right into it. You know?
The punches weren't really necessary. Maybe
they were super necessary. And rub it in your face so you and guys like you could see it and be like, maybe I don't talk so much shit because when I cross one of these real motherfuckers, they're going to make me pay for it, man. And it's not over for Ben either. He still has to deal with me. If I see him at Whole Foods, I'm gonna still slap that dude up because I don't like him.
Now at this point, Jorge Masvidal was calling for a title shot. I think he knows that his time was ticking, but he also stated that he wanted to be fairly compensated for his career. Let me just first state that all of these UFC fighters are criminally underpaid in my opinion. So fair play to him. I believe all these athletes should try and get their money.
Jorge Masvidal had a good last fight. Good last fight. Him. So I know my man's a gangster, but he ain't no West Coast gangster. You know what I'm saying?
Finally. You know, finally, someone has recognized how game Jorge Masvidal is, how he's always stepped up. He's done all the hard work for all these years without the recognition. And the person who notices him is one of the superstars of the UFC, Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz absolutely gave Jorge Masvidal the rub here, and it was something that would pay off massively for Masvidal. Look at the look on Masvidal's face. Even he is thinking, finally, you know, finally it's paid off. I've made it, you know. Now, this was the first fight in Masvidal's lightning in a bottle year where he was the favorite to win the fight. He absolutely outclassed Nate Diaz in all aspects of the fight, whether it was striking, clinch work, ground and pound. His tenacity was much better than Diaz, and his fight IQ was higher as well. Now, the fight ended by a doctor stoppage, which was very controversial because of the New York State Commission basically telling Nate Diaz that his eye was okay and then stopping the fight right after he said, yeah, I'm fine to go. So the fans were in an uproar regarding this because this was such a massive fight. They promoted it amazingly. We knew there was no trash talk required. You know, we know what Nate Diaz brings. We know what Jorge Masvidal brings. It was the collection of two hurricanes coming together, and this is what we wanted to see: pure violence. Two tough guys who do not get finished, do not go down, and just care about striking. Let's go. In Masvidal's post-fight speech, he talks about running it back with Nate Diaz because he's a true competitor, you know, and he wanted to finish Nate, and he'd happily give him a rematch, run it back for the fans, you know, us to have a proper fight. I don't want it to get stopped by the commission, this and that.
UFC lets it happen, just run it back. I don't like to leave the ring like this with my opponent conscious, so we're gonna run it back. We're gonna run it back, New York. We gave you 3 good rounds. Don't be booing me. Don't be booing me. I'll hand out these 3 pieces in the soda to you too, man. I'm not the doctor here, so don't be booing me, man, because you won't boo me to my face, man.
Jorge Masvidal was officially a superstar with a win over Nate Diaz. In all 3 of the fights in 2019, he was the B-side to all 3 of these fights, and he had to win them in emphatic fashion, which he did. We have to give him credit. He said the right things, he got the right opportunities, and he capitalized on all of them. His last impression was that he's going to run it back with Nate Diaz. Now that he's won the BMF belt, just listen to what he says here, and I want you to keep this in your mind for the future.
I live in the future, man. This thing is cool, but I'm not going to be in every interview like that, like them cocksuckers. Okay, look at me, I got an interim belt. That's not me, man.
Now, Jorge Masvidal takes a direct shot here at Colby Covington. They used to be best friends, training partners, and good buddies. However, Colby Covington apparently ripped off one of Jorge Masvidal's coaches, and they also had a lot of beef because Jorge Masvidal cannot stand Colby Covington's new persona where he's the ultimate heel, to get people to hate him, to get a reaction. Things that Jorge Masvidal doesn't care about in terms of the fight game, clout chasing. He's not interested in any of those things. However, this is the beginning of where we start to see Jorge Masvidal become a hypocrite. Now, even though he's just said in the cage that he's going to rematch Nate Diaz, he's already bringing up the prospect of fighting Canelo in a boxing match. Now, I understand why these fighters do this. It's to get their biggest payday or potentially put feelers out there for a massive fight to be made, and they are trying to get compensated. However, just 10 minutes ago, you were just saying how badly you want to rematch Nate Diaz, and you're already talking about Canelo now. But okay, let's give you a free pass on that one. Fair play. We would all probably do the same thing.
just said if Canelo wants to get it, right?
I don't know. I like to break his face, man. Just fight, just test myself, make a lot of money for testing myself. But I truly feel I could make it 1-1 MMA versus boxing.
Now in this press conference, he's asked about Conor McGregor, which he hasn't chased, which is a good thing. We like that because everyone appears to be chasing Conor McGregor, and it's so typical these days. However, he addresses him brilliantly in this press conference. He completely destroys him.
And Dana White said...
Come back to what?
To MMA, to the UFC.
What do you mean, like fighting in the cage?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That dude's been talking wild for a second. If he fights and gets a victory, and he wants this, and some of you motherfuckers me, man, because you know what the I'll do to that little dude, bro. I'll fuck that little guy up. Dana White, president of this motherfucking company, said I'm too much man for him. I get it why people want to see him hurt for the stunts he's been pulling, but he don't want this shit. He's just talking so he can get his name out there. He was cheering for Nate. He wanted to run it back with Nate. You think he's at home seeing that fight saying, I want to fight that dude? That dude ain't
Now he's fought in November, and Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone is slated for January, 2.5 months later. Now just take a look at this and let's break it down.
What it is that mountain fools can get it. Even that little fool at the desk, all of them, every single one of them get a challenge. It does not matter. I'm back and I'm ready. Look at that fool in his bleeding house coat.
I remember when I watched this live, I could not believe Jorge Masvidal did this. It just looks so desperate, so forced, and he's carrying the belt around. It's 2.5 months late. By this time, Kamaru Usman had fought Colby Covington. Conor McGregor's just fought. Why are you dressed like that? Why are you begging for it in the front row? It's so desperate. It's just so unlike him from everything I've seen. Everything we saw from this guy was, I don't care about the circus acts. I'm all about the action, the fight, the violence. And here he is doing things like this, and I just felt so turned off. It was so cringy, to be honest. And he's even wearing the exact same robe that Conor had during the Floyd Mayweather fight. It just honestly put me off so badly. This is how I felt at the time. Whether you guys disagree with me, maybe you guys think this is a good move. I can't say. Everyone has their own taste, right? But this is what he did, and I don't think it was a great idea. Okay, so it didn't look apparent that he was going to get the Conor McGregor fight, which clearly he was after, even though he was acting like in the press conference, that guy doesn't want it with me. He then moves on to start trash talking against Kamaru Usman. Because Jorge Masvidal was such a big star at this point, he had created a YouTube channel and started to capitalize on different media ventures, but he is capitalizing on those markets, and he does have a great documentary on there, to be fair. I do recommend you check it out. However, he begins the trash talk by making compilation videos regarding Kamaru Usman to try and get the fight. Again, it goes against what he believes in. However, you got to do what you got to do to get your fight. Right now, your stock is at your ultimate high, and he seems to have put Nate Diaz in the rearview mirror completely. He's not even acknowledging him, and at this time, he just was talking about Kamaru Usman, and after the Conor McGregor fight, they had that Super Bowl interaction in February, so he was trying to build a fight with Usman, so fair enough. Maybe we can give him a little bit of leeway on this one. Now, this is the first time we've ever seen Masvidal as the A side in any fight he's ever had. The UFC recognized that they wanted to capitalize on Masvidal's stardom and attempted to make the fight with Usman straight away after the Nate Diaz fight. However, they couldn't come to terms on the payment, so Masvidal chose not to take the offer that the UFC was putting on the table, and they ran with Gilbert Burns. 1 week before the fight, Gilbert Burns gets a positive COVID test, at which point they end up offering Masvidal the money he was initially after, or close to, where he flew across the world to Abu Dhabi Fight Island in order to take on Usman. However, all we heard about was the 6 days notice. Yes, commentators in the UFC played a role in this, but Masvidal himself didn't do any favors. He himself continued to use this excuse over and over and over again, and as I mentioned before, this completely goes against his nature.
Good for you, man. I mean,
what 20 pounds in 6 days. I never stop training. I'm always training. Maybe not to fight Ben Askren. I'm not in Ben Askren's shape because he's a hell of a wrestler, or even fight a guy like Darren Till. But am I in shape for this bum that I'm about to decapitate and baptize? Hell yeah.
He talks about the 20 pounds weight cut in 6 days, and you know, it is part of the storyline. It's not me saying that this is the only thing he relied on constantly, but he did bring it up a lot of the time. Now in this next clip, when he was talking about how Usman's a bum and stuff like that, this is also fight promotion, but it's also him trying to convince himself that he's going to do it. He's going to actually win the belt. When we think about Michael Bisping, who took the title shot on 12 days notice, it's come to light that Michael Bisping was not confident won at all in that fight, but he had to convince himself that he can win this fight, that he's going to get revenge on Luke Rockhold. And I just feel as though Masvidal is doing the same thing here, because he knows he's probably going to lose this fight, but he had to come up with the insurance policy of the 6 days so that the fans could give him another fight, so that the fans could believe in him, and so that the company could maybe get him a rematch on better terms. Now, Masvidal loses this fight by decision, which was expected, to be honest. He did do very well in the first round. However, he ended up getting dominated by the cage and mainly foot stomped, so he likes to say, and he likes to play footsie with me. Anyway, he did lose this fight, but after this fight was done, he says that he put up a better fight than Colby or Leon did against Usman. Now, he doesn't see any point in him fighting either of those guys in the post-fight press conference because he did a better performance on a much shorter notice. So he's already saying it again, as in, I don't need to fight these guys, I'm the biggest star, they don't bring in the numbers, and I did better than them anyway. Now,
the fragile guy with the MAGA hat, definitely not him, because he got finished by this guy with a full training camp. He had like 12 weeks and he got finished, so I think that guy's below me and this dude by a lot, you know. 6-day notice and I was nowhere near getting hurt or getting put out, you know. The gas tank wasn't the best, but I wasn't going nowhere as far as damage goes. Everybody could see that. So definitely not that punk. Leon Edwards, I don't know if the numbers make sense, or whoever it is, if the numbers make sense.
After a significant amount of time after the Usman fight, everyone was begging for the Colby versus Masvidal rivalry fight, simply because Colby had built this fight up himself with the former best friends storyline, the former training partners, and then also the enemies line, you know, how they have real beef. Masvidal goes on to say this.
Gotta do Jorge versus Colby. Why didn't that come to fruition?
Because Colby's a They offered him good money. And then the Colby deal was that we already knew we had the Usman fight. You know, they had already told me, hey, you have the Usman fight. So why am I gonna fight the second place guy that got his jaw broke?
He starts to reply by saying Colby's a bitch, but really it's because he's trying to do damage control and control the narrative, and that it's Colby's fault the fight didn't come together. He even says that they offered him the money, so it was very close to happening. But then he goes, oh, we already had the Usman fight, so why would I take a fight against Colby? I just translate that to, I don't want to fight Colby.
I'm gonna fight the biggest and the best fights possible. Then I'll come down to these JV motherfuckers, you know? And that fight will take place, but when I say so, you know? Because remember, who the is Colby? You know, he fought Usman, generated, I think, under 300,000 pay-per-views. What did he do with Woodley? You know, he just doesn't generate.
Masvidal seems to be under the impression that he's the one who created all this superstardom. Yes, of course, he did win those fights. He created the Mind Shift, the reality TV show helped, but he had the right fights and the right dance partners at the right time. And he's sort of believing his own hype at the moment, and this became the narrative. We had this 2-year inactivity period for Masvidal where he was being offered fights, Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, and he just kept talking about numbers. This was the same story we kept hearing, was this guy doesn't generate, this guy doesn't generate, I'm the A side, I'm the A side, I'm the A side. And it got very tiresome. It got very, very tiresome, and it put a lot of people off. Because if you're the BMF, if you're the baddest mother effer in the world, why aren't you fighting? Especially since you just lost your title shot. He had some good fortune here because Kamaru Usman, after defeating Gilbert Burns, called out Masvidal. So that was almost a free ticket to the end of the rainbow for Masvidal, because Usman recognized a low risk fight for a high paycheck, the highest possible paycheck in the top 5. But Masvidal did not deserve the second opportunity 100%, and Masvidal was sitting out waiting rather than being the BMF that you just won. You're not mentioning Nate Diaz, you're not mentioning Colby Covington, and you're not even entertaining any opportunities to take on the Ultimate Fighter and build a massive fight with Colby. That would have been a fantastic dance partner, but you just continued to think that you were better than everyone else when Nate Diaz was the one who gave you your in. Even after all the Colby drama, fair enough, Masvidal got a second title shot just based off his name alone and the excuses that would continue to be made. So he ends up talking about Nate Diaz here, and Nate Diaz even calls him out, saying that he's a sellout. Diaz can recognize that he's avoided the rematch, he's avoided fights with Colby Covington, he's parading the BMF belt around, and he's using his name to get a title shot and making out that he is the #1 guy. He's the biggest superstar in the whole world now. Okay, so how am I doing so far? Am I doing an alright job of trying to convince you about this mindset shift? If so far I'm failing, let's have a look at this next clip.
Hey, it's your dad calling in. Your stuff that's made it successful. It's your dad calling in. Look.
That dude's still alive?
He's still alive, bro. I'm about to take him out. Hey, he's still alive. Don't worry, I'm gonna finish him off. Yeah, don't worry.
Tell him I like them flip-flops, man.
Now, in my opinion, this is Jorge Masvidal's most egregious crime. It's not that associating your name with Jake Paul is a bad thing. It's just that Jake spent the beginning of his boxing career bashing MMA completely. And Masvidal attaching his name to him felt exactly the same as the showing up in the robe and the belt with Conor. It just felt like a desperate, attention-seeking move for clout. Sort of like, if I can attach my name to someone even more famous than me, it will give me a bigger rub because he's stroking his own ego now. That's the impression I got on this, and to be honest, this one really just kind of made me feel like, ugh. Now, before his fight with Kamaru Usman, in the build-up, he was just talking about how Usman couldn't hurt him, how he felt Usman's power on 6 days' notice, and if he had a full training camp, there wouldn't be anything that could possibly hurt him or damage him or cause him any concern whatsoever, until the point where he got absolutely viciously knocked out. Now, in my opinion, whether you believe in God or a higher power, I believe that the higher power or God had taught Jorge Masvidal that if he was going to direct his career into the path that he always wanted, he was going to have to make the mental shift himself, which he did. He was going to have to get the finishes and the viral moments, which he did, but he should never be overconfident or believe his own hype, and I believe that's what he did in this fight here, and that's why he paid for it in such a devastating way. If you aren't humble yet, the universe will find a way to make you humble, and I believe that's what happened here.
Usman showed me something that he didn't show the first fight. I didn't feel his power, and that's what happens when you get overconfident.
Masvidal admits his mistake while breaking down the fight, and he's obviously emotional at this point. Fair play to him. I just want to say this. The last act of this video is not to attack Jorge Masvidal. It's a breakdown because I felt as though I saw a massive change in his personality. However, his raw honesty here is very admirable. We wouldn't know he was overconfident unless he verbalized it himself, so fair play to him. And he did put up a hell of a fight in both fights, and he did take those fights. And at the end of the day, he's got to do what's best for his career. We can't tell him what to do, and he's not going to do whatever we want him to do. This is just a video talking about his antics and whether there's something that we agree with as fans. So I ask you, did Gamebred keep that same energy? And if you disagree with me, it's completely fine. We can have a difference of opinion. I'm actually happy for you to call me out, and if you feel as though I've missed something, I'm off about something, call me out and hold me accountable, because I want to make this content for you guys the best it can possibly be. So I'm always open to getting better and learning what you guys would like to see and how I can be better and frame things better. So would we make the same shift he did if we became a star late? And what is Jorge's path back to good graces? Now, he gave Usman props for a KO and said it was a beautiful KO and that he would love to learn the same thing, and gave Usman a very, very high regard because he faked the takedown and hit a beautiful 1-2 and knocked him out very badly. So that's already a step in the right direction. And when I talked about being humble, I feel as though he achieved that already a little bit with that comment. I just want to close this one out by saying, if you have any suggestions for any videos that you would like to see, please leave them in the comments below. If you could leave any comments regarding the video, good or bad, I'm happy to get to all of them. If you could like this video, subscribe and support the channel. There'll be a lot more content coming. The video quality will get better. I'll learn more and more things. I just want to say thank you so much for watching, for sticking with me, and for supporting the channel. It means so much. And if you haven't seen my video on Conor McGregor, every excuse Conor McGregor has made after losing, I'm sure there's a link for it in the description below. Thank you again. You guys are amazing. Until the next one, peace.